Welcome back to the show, Dimitri Lazarou. Thank you for coming on the Round 2 PolyCast.
It's amazing to be back. Very nice to see you again.
It is to see you again as well. I find that doing this show makes me really excited because it reminds me of our original interview and how we were talking. I know we had some technical difficulties at one point too, so I'm glad we're finally using Riverside because back then I think we were trying to use Zoom.
Yeah,
it just didn't really quite work out. How are you doing?
I'm well. It's a new age in careers and life in general. I think the advent of AI has been a very solid bookmark in life before that and after that. And to be honest, there's two ways to bookmark things now. It's before and after the pandemic, and before and after the advent of AI. So I'd rather focus on the positive aspect of that thing rather than the other way around.
I agree.
Dustin Miller, Poly.
Now, since the last time we spoke, we were talking about Omnimathematics, a complex but very interesting topic. Anything new to add to that kind of concept?
Yeah, well, this is still going on as a topic of research. There are many things that have changed based on the advent of AI, I have to say. So, as a lot of my work now involves analyzing more and more text with AI, which is very cool. I have been using the Zettelkasten method for knowledge management, which has changed my life a lot. It's known in the English-speaking world as smart notes. Perhaps people have heard it like that, but it's a process of contextualizing every single piece of information that you have so that it's evergreen, essentially. So that has changed a lot the way I work, the way I read, the way I consume media. So while the input has slowed down, but the output has been massively improved. So I'm very, very, very happy about how this is going.
Yes. So we've actually talked about sucker brains on this show quite a bit for a variety of different ways and purposes. Zettelkasten is one of those main methods that people use, but it's one of those more unique ones as well. And it's very similar to the library-based learning that you were talking about before and the last time you were on the show. And I think that there's a lot of tools that are cropping up now, capacities.io, AnyType, Reflect, that kind of surpass how Notion or Obsidian used to work in this kind of way. I use Obsidian now. I moved everything from Notion to Obsidian, and I feel like maybe that's probably what you're using or something like that.
No, I'm actually, I have used, so I was using an application similar to Obsidian in the past called Logseek.
Oh, yeah.
But my life changed this October when I was invited to use Tana, and Tana is pretty much, a supercharged version of Logseek or and Obsidian, because it allows for context. So that has been a massive improvement. So in Tana, you can specify different pages to have specific characteristics. Yes.
Yeah.
Any type is similar to this. Tana is just more immediate about this, I guess.
I forgot about Tana actually, because I think I signed up to try it and I didn't get a reply back yet, or maybe is it Mac only or something like that?
No, it's web-based, but the community is very protective of what kind of users they're allowing in the beginning. So it's still in beta, so they're going to open it up for more people, but they prioritize people doing research just because this is the type of solutions they want to offer. The product itself is adapting and changing very much since October that I've started using it, but it's generally like a slow migration process for everybody. But it's still something like AnyType or Obsidian is almost a good analogy for it. It's just a bit more versatile the way it works.
I'm definitely gonna look it back up after this, and I just for context for the audience too, we're talking about tools for second brains and just organizing all of our data and information. The reason why I moved to Obsidian was that I wanted to be all local because I had issues with Notion being web-based and AWS going down, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And also with my databases being so large, it actually slowed down quite a bit and I couldn't actually do anything with it. And so, especially if you have that many books and that kind of thing, I bet. One of the cool things is, though, there's a lot of AI plugins for Obsidian. I also thought about just doing AutoGPT, just local in a computer, accessing the same folder, but having an AI trained on my data, privacy is a big concern, obviously, at that point, but I thought that'd be really cool and create kind of like a proto Jarvis in a way.
Yeah, 100%. Tana is directly connected to my ChatGPT API, so I just go with it, and it takes the context from my conversations, which is amazing. And also, like, basically the cool thing about Tana is it allows for recording commands, like recording your prompts essentially for ChatGPT. So it's just especially in terms of the work we do, it has been massively helpful because we can have AI-based templates that we can run and apply and have what we used to do face-to-face with our clients. Now we can do it in a fraction of the time and expand on what they're giving us instead of just going through the motions with them. So that changes things a lot for us, like really much.
Seems like it would expedite quite a bit. All right, so one of my first questions here, round 2 on the show. You're back here. We're back in action. I love our chat about AI. We're actually going to get into it a little bit later as well. But what have you been doing since the last time you've been on? Because it's been a few years, obviously.
Yes. So the first thing is, well, the studio has expanded itself. I have a business partner now. We used to be connected in the past. We were sort of productivity buddies in a co-working group that we used to belong. And, after many years, we had sort of aligned our careers and our design styles just because we had this continuous communication between us. And at some point became, very, very evident that the best solution is to join forces and invest in the same pot in that sense. So whatever I make, she gets to use. Whatever she makes, I get to use. So in this, we don't have to have 2 websites, 2 channels for social media. Like, everything is going in the same foundational structure. So that is amazing.
Yeah.
It has changed a lot. With even accountability is very different because when you're working, we used to be accountability buddies. But actually telling someone I will have this training by Tuesday, in a professional manner is a very different thing. So things get done more. We have been working with some quite exciting clients. Health Services of Canada. We did some work for the blood donation program. We have been working with a few businesses in the US and Canada. And we recently did, again, an AI-inspired project. So we developed branding for a fictional company that is supposed to be exporting coffee from Mars. Like, the idea, the concept is, what if we colonized Mars and we have some industry there? What would be happening? So we saw that Mars is actually quite favorable to growing coffee crops there. So we tried to imagine how this might be. And we pretty much used AI to pretend to be our client in some sense. So we ran all of our workshops, all of our frameworks with it. And, it went really amazing. We're really happy with the way it worked.
Got a way to get that feedback too quickly.
Yes, and this is the amazing thing. So in the past, we used to meet our clients for, a 2-hour session, a 3-hour session, but there's only so much that you can cover, first of all. And second is if you're missing some kind of information that you would like to ask them, you can't really ask them to assign more time. Sometimes things are going this way. Like it feels okay to just use software now to fill in the gaps in that regard. Just erases the fear of the blank page for them as well, because they have to describe for the client and their intentions for the future and all that. So all of this is very, very streamlined. So we're really happy with the way things have progressed. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
One thing I like to do about the show is having this rapid fire questions kind of thing, and I'm still experimenting on how it really flows. I tried making a limitation of just try to answer it in one line only or one sentence only. Doesn't really end up working out, especially for people like us. But do your best at the conciseness, I guess, at this. Rapid fire question.
The quotable version. So hit me.
Yes. If you do a tangent, it's fine. How has your brand identity evolved since our last conversation? You kind of touched on that earlier, but I'm kind of also thinking about your personal brand in a way.
Yes. So a lot of it has grown in the conceptual way. Like I have started feeling and working more as a thinker. I can expand, or I can keep.
Yes, please.
No.
Yes. Sorry. No, I asked you to go shorter, and then I'm like, please.
There you go.
Do go on.
So again, the advent of AI, it's a big help. Like I cannot, there are very few days that I don't get to talk about this. There is such a wealth of information coming from sources from the past, especially philosophy books and really advanced topics that books really dense used to take quite a while to pass through, especially if you're taking notes at the same time. While now there is a very convenient way of actually simplifying, summarizing, outlining enormous books of philosophy, especially in things like category theory and what makes a symbol and all that. Like all of these things, tightly packed pieces of information can be very, very usefully summarized. So the bulk work of even deciding what book you want to read, if you actually have an AI abridge this for you before you decide what your next involvement is going to be, it prevents a huge waste of time. So a lot of my work now has been absorbing this information and re-putting it in a more digestible way for designers. So I'm just simplifying all knowledge, essentially.
You're also a curator, and content curation is actually a subset of, I guess you could say, content creation or being a content creator. And a lot of people really don't understand it or don't really do it very much. But when you are an authority of a particular topic, you are in the best prime position to share what you think is great. If you think this book is great, then yes, please share it with your audience. And then you could also simplify it too, so they can get a taste for it and see if it's actually interesting for them to pursue for their own needs. So I love that. And I'm glad that you're a curator.
Yeah, there's a very valuable detail there that back in the 1700s or 1800s, even putting a book together was so expensive, very few people would read it. So the condensation of information is very different. Like if Heidegger had the opportunity to have a blog and write every week, like things would be more digestible, more easily readable. So the format and the technology of the time meant that it's very, very, very hard to read because the information is so dense. So just unpacking these things that people will not never, but people will generally not be bothered reading, but it's still valuable for them. Like there's a wealth of opportunity there.
It gives me an idea, like what if someone takes a big book or a big author and makes a blog using AI to simplify each different topic from the book, and then you use it, the human's perspective at the end to give their own 2 cents.
Yeah, like what I'm doing right now as a pet project is there is this treatise by an ancient Roman writer. Like he was Greek, but he was in the Roman times, Longinus, and he was writing about the sublime, right? And back in the day, books were in dialogue form. So there were two people discussing a topic and felt like a play in the sense. But there is so much superfluous information in there saying like, oh, tell me, Longinus, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I'm translating these books in simple English. I'm just changing nothing in the big context of the things, but I'm just reducing the size and tiredness, how tiring they are for the reader. So just doing this, especially in classical texts where there's no copyright involved, because you can't really digest the books of someone who's alive. Well, especially for classical books, there's a huge opportunity of just putting them in simple words that people will understand. So for ancient Romans, Greeks, it's just very, very tangible.
That is interesting. And on a little side note, the copyright situation is really weird because when we do interviews like this, for example, if let's say we're Mr. Beast doing interviews or maybe a bigger podcast name kind of thing, well, there's a lot of people making TikTok channels or YouTube short channels making clips of their long form interviews. They're literally taking the chunks of the long form content, and it's not their content, but it does help build the awareness of the bigger brand. So it's really interesting how that dynamic works. It's kind of parasitic, but it's also symbiotic. And I feel like with older content, like obviously more ancient stuff, you don't have to worry about that as much. But I feel like even in the modern day, it's still helpful.
I agree. If I think we're coming to an age where it will be easier to find the pedigree of an idea. So as long as people, will always be able to understand that this is a concept by Mr. Beast, or even more in ideas and writing, like this is, this idea came from this idea came from that. Recording the pedigree of these ideas and how they move from thinker to thinker in such a way, like it's going to be more easy. And in a sense, I think if credit has been given, I think
yes,
we should be fairly well, especially in the realms of concepts and thinking and talks.
Credit is super, super important, and I agree. And that kind of actually leads to my next question here too. How do you see the intersection of artistic creativity and AI generation going? Because there's a lot of dynamic conversation about this.
Yeah, I think so. First of all, like the way this works is just a bigger scale of how things used to be in some sense. So if you decide to show your work in public, there's nothing stopping people from being inspired by it or trying to imitate it. So in that sense, nothing new is happening. The way the machine itself works is a bit more random, a bit more beautiful. I've done some specific talks about this, but I'm not concerned because the idea of artistic expression itself is different from just producing the images. It's just imbuing them with emotion and content and intention. That's what the machines are missing right now. So in that regard, I think I do AI art myself, which for me is more akin to poetry, poetry than illustration or painting. In a sense, when I'm producing AI art, I don't imply that I've put the pixels together or the shapes together. It's my choice of showing the specific composition that I decide to show is the art itself in this situation. So, yeah, that's the way I
Also, for those listening in, go check out his Instagram because it's phenomenal. But I digress. It is interesting to think about how the poetic side of things, as you were saying, because I definitely agree. It's also a matter of how you prompt it too. There is that creative expression on how you, like, when you prompt it and how you are getting these images produced. Because you could say the same prompt, but if you don't word it right, it's going to generate something kind of crappy. But if you word it right, you add the right details, and you try again and find the right one, you kind of test the waters. You end up having still that ingenuity.
100%. Like, this is, for me, it's almost when I'm sitting against the Midjourney prompt, essentially what I'm doing is sort of meditating on a result in such a sense. And sometimes I find it useful to share with people. Sometimes I don't. It feels like, a secular prayer of some sorts about things that are bouncing in my mind, and stating them as they are might be too vulgar or too direct or too dry in some sense. So I just present images to sort of generate impressions to people in that sense.
It almost seems like it's translating your thoughts.
Yes, just implying them.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting too, because the dynamic of people keep worrying that these AI tools are going to replace artists, but it's more of a tool for an artist to express themselves. I personally got into ChatGPT at the tail end of last year. I kept having a whole bunch of people tell me to go try it. And I think I had looked into it in the past, definitely looked into like Google Dream, whatever view or whatever it's called. And that was a couple years ago. But whenever these tools started really coming out this year, I had already spent the first month of this year, January, pursuing all these different image generation tools, some videos, text to video, even some text to sound, which is really weird. So I spent this past year, half a year, I guess you could say, working on a video game, because I started asking ChatGPT some questions and having it kind of flesh out some of my ideas. And it fleshed it out so well that I was like, I can't ignore this anymore. I can't just put this off to the side.
What kind of video game?
So I've always been a fan of Pokemon, and I wanted to create my own fan game, but I realized that a lot of my ideas were unique enough to where I was like, I don't want to make a fan game. I want to make my own game. And that way I could put it on Xbox, I could put it on whatever platform I want, and also obviously make money from it too. And so I changed obviously the concepts quite a bit to separate from any kind of copyright or something like that. But I started generating a few hundred different creatures, essentially, from DALL-E, Midjourney, Nokimon is one really great generator. And it's fascinating how some of them are kind of crappy, but there was some that it generated that were so good that one of them, on DALL-E in particular, it gave me such an image that was so good, I made it the mascot of my game. Because I was like, this is so amazing. Like the way I came up with the idea. Yeah.
So cool. Wow.
So
Good luck.
Thank you. Moving on. Again, this is not so rapid fire. Not so rapid fire. Ooh, I should write that down. Not so rapid fire questions.
Okay. There you go.
And whatever. But what is new in the world of molecular branding?
What is new? Since it has been dead for 100 years, I'm still the only new thing. I just see these ideas getting just a bit more traction, I guess. When presented with these ideas, I think what is happening is we have lost faith in a lot of the authoritative figures of the previous way of thinking. People understand the world is more complex now, for sure. I think contextual note making like Tana has changed the way we are going towards a semantic internet as well, which is very, very, very cool. So I think at some point you will have this merging of semantic and semiotic internet. So the molecules are going to be more easy for people to use and access and handle in that sense. So that is very beautiful. Still, I have to say, not much. Like I'm still, quite alarmed in working with this.
I was curious to see what else you might have added to the whole topic itself. And something you mentioned there's some.
Yeah, I was. So I have cleared up a lot of the definitions. Lots of valuable work has been appropriated and used from new findings in neuroscience, especially work on consciousness and how we experience things, how we view things, how we remember things. So a lot of work from Annika Harris, which is she's a neuroscientist and she has worked a lot in consciousness studies. So that has been very helpful. But even in the understanding of people, the way that we have started using the word token now again to refer to artificial intelligence LLMs, units of language. Tokens themselves are branding molecules. Like tokens are, in such a sense, like the kind of atoms that we use. There are non-linguistic ones, but people have started understanding that a word is different than from a token, and that changes things a lot.
It definitely is a lot to learn when it comes to a lot of these tools. We're still at that point where it's not full on bleeding edge, I don't think, anymore. I think we're finally getting to some early adopter stages in the bell curve of AI. But again, like you said, the token, the words, the languages used to explain a lot of these concepts, it's starting to get simplified. It's starting to get a little bit more convenient. Not so much. It's still like a lot of work to use a lot of these, text and video generators, for example. Some of them you have to literally go into Google Colab and like borrow a virtual GPU to just even run it.
Yeah, what I'm referring to is more about the people's, the broad audience's understanding of what a token is. Like in the past, it would be very difficult to say, the word hedgehog is one word, but hedge is a different kind of thing, and they're all. But now, if you're saying hedgehog is actually one word with two tokens, in that sense, it's a combination of tokens. People in the broad in broad society understand this a little bit more. So it's easier to talk about atomized fundamental elements of meaning, which is it's more congruent with people's language right now. So I'm very lucky.
I love that. So, going to our next question here, I really want to know how your personal library has evolved. You talk about Zettelkasten, and did you combine those two methodologies, or did you have them two separate things?
Yes. So essentially, I have combined Zettelkasten. I'm using the idea compass from Vicky Zhao, which is also a prominent, modern Zettelkasten thinker, because Nicholas Luhmann was back in the 60s. So Vicky Zhao has this idea of the conceptual compass, which is essentially you have an idea. There are some questions that can lead you to further think about it. So the questions are like, what this idea leads to. What kind of tool can I make with this idea? What is opposite to this idea? What is the origin of this idea? So these four questions just sort of help you move from what you have into new kinds of thinking, and these in themselves can create new Zettelkasten nodes and new Zettelkasten nodes, and it's just a matter of sitting down and just moving along the labyrinth. The path, very nice. Yeah, it's just crazy. And to be honest, like one of the angles I was neglecting in the past has been the origin of an idea, like where did this idea come from? But just having a look to where a concept that you hold as truth has originated, it just gives you tremendous insight. So if you like an author and you read the top 3 authors they liked, and top 3 authors, these 3 authors. Like, there's just, you grow so much and you go into a more fundamental level of understanding the concepts that you're working with. So this is, for me, that's, very, very insightful in the last few years.
Sounds like it's spawned a lot of rabbit holes for you.
Well, yes, but the thing is, just because I'm making a point of writing down everything that I'm working on, like, I think by writing now, it sort of just creates an unlimited wellspring of content, writing ideas. Like, it doesn't feel like a rabbit hole, because in the end of a session, you have publishable thoughts, like a good chunk of publishable thoughts. So,
well, I didn't mean that in a negative way. I like rabbit holes and also productive.
yes, but I used to have the time clicked on Wikipedia for hours and hours and hours. But in the end, I had absorbed a few things, but I didn't have anything useful to, because I'm addicted in information in that way. But now, just because I'm making a point of moving along the steps of the labyrinth in that sense, and every step is a paragraph that I've written. New things are created, new things are being written down, so it doesn't feel like a waste.
That atomic note taking is a very powerful thing, and I need to get more into it myself. So I definitely resonate with that. Do you remember Stumble Upon?
Yes, I use Zotero as a bookmark manager. I wasn't that organized in the time of Stumble Upon. I wasn't that organized. I just had huge piles of tabs open and hoping for the best. But now I'm just using Zotero for that reason.
I brought it up because I like how spontaneous it was. I feel like nowadays, with better knowledge management systems that we're talking about here, the concept of a website like that, where you just click a button and you randomly go to another one, it was generally pretty good at giving you the context of what you wanted, the semantics of what you wanted, no less. Mm-hmm. And you brought that up earlier, semantics becoming more and more of a thing. I had heard in the search engine optimization world that semantic search is becoming more and more important for Google. And same thing with Obsidian. There's a plugin that allows you to have semantic search, and you can search all your content that way. And so I'm really curious to see how, as creators, we could also position ourselves to work with semantic and prepare our websites for that. I'm not sure how that would happen. It's more of a concept, but just curious.
Well, there is a point so there is a movement on the internet called the interconnected web. And basically it is a movement about starting owning your information, your content, your data, and making a point of having, a website that you host yourself, that it's like the idea is sharing on social media, but the content itself lives in your website in that regard. So blogs are interconnected. So there are some protocols now so that you can, when you comment on somebody else's blog, they can visit yours. Like there are protocols now that are trying to approach this in that regard. So because social media right now are walled gardens, like you have to go in, you have to have your account. So it's just owning the information yourself is going to change things. And for me, I have a business website, I have a personal blog, and I'm hosting my own podcast on my own server, and it's still disseminated, in Spotify and whatever. But the idea is that I keep my stuff, and eventually it's just gonna live by itself. That's the way I see it happening.
I love that, and I think maybe what might be a good idea is for you to come on for a bonus episode and just talk. We could discuss the future of social media together, because I definitely talked a lot about that on my solo cast, and I've never actually talked to anybody about it with another person. We really should talk about IPFS and how different Web3 platforms are coming out, and decentralized social networks. Just these fascinating concepts. That'd be great.
Yeah, I have been, especially decentralized social networks. They're very much tied with the idea of open source software that I'm a big proponent of. my friends and I, we have our own web server that we use, messaging app, and we're trying to make a social sharing kind of thing that plays well with Mastodon and all the other decentralized tools. So yeah, for us, proponents of open source, I think the old regime of social media is showing its corruption and decay. So we're just getting ready for the next big thing, I guess.
I literally tweeted something about that a couple days ago. So
yeah,
a couple more questions here before we wrap up. Just kind of like a bonus question, if you will, because last time we had you on the show, we barely talked about the podcast very much. And one of the questions we skipped over was something that I thought would be really cool. In your podcast, you go into the agent design strategy and just this alchemy aspect. Can you elaborate what your podcast is about so people can know more about it and know what to look up?
The podcast itself is run by me and Billy Bowman, who's a UX designer. We have a different approach in many topics, especially politics. So we come from different directions. We discuss the ways that design society and design community works and feels. So we speak a lot about things like, phenomena like Upwork and how it creates what we have dubbed the design proletariat, like people just doing the $5 jobs that people don't want to do, while the elite designers are getting all the credit. Or if design should it be design school or designer school? Should one be taught how to design or how to be a professional designer, which sometimes clashes? Or things that are in the zeitgeist. They are about the politics of the design community in that sense, but also transcendental philosophical issues. We're talking about how we've talked about design thinking. We've talked about AI. It's just a matter of more highbrow things than the toxic positivity that you see in many design podcasts, which everybody's nice and happy. We talk about their last experience with their very rich client that we're very lucky to have, but people don't get any real tangible information from this. So we're just trying to find out the big issues, I guess.
Dimi, it seems like you're definitely carving out a niche in the design world where people can actually get something from your show.
Yeah, like again, in the last few years, especially after the pandemic, I've been very much of a cynic, and cynicism has brought me this disdain for pretending in my professional life. So, you get an award, you have to pretend the people who are given to you know what they're doing, or you study in a school, you have to pretend that people that signed your degree, know what they're doing. And the thing is, like, most people don't know what they're doing. Most people have to live in this sort of, pretend, make-believe situation that we have a handle on things. So for me, it's just an opportunity to be very candid about the things that we just don't know yet, or we're unable to solve, or what have you. So yeah, that's the reason I'm doing it.
Love that. So what is next for you on your journey?
That's a very good choice. So a very good question. The thing that is most important for me right now is finding a way to grow. First of all, to grow the business. Since joining with my partner, we have both understood that there is so much value in having more people around and not just being solo. So we'll definitely output more than the two of us added up. So there's surplus there. So we would love to find both partners and people to work with as in a more freelance situation. So sharing our ideas and expanding this cynicism in some sense, just making sure that we're finding people that gel with us in this situation. That is a very, very big priority for us. The second thing is I think it's a matter of this cynicism. I want to do what has been considered the impossible. I want to make a complete, and when I say complete, I mean complete educational curriculum for a brand identity designer. Like, I want to find a way that, the 40 books I'm reading a year, somebody could follow these footsteps, have a solid foundational thing, is just go for it. I don't think design education fits in the usual 3 or 4 year study thing. There's lots of knowledge development that happens after people graduate. So I would rather do something that is more atomized, but it can be so comprehensive and have everything in there, which is going to be slow, but I think I'm going to attempt it.
Hear me out. I have an idea. My first thing I did with PolyInnovator was create a do-it-yourself modular degree framework. And actually, since our last call, I finally released a template for people to use. I also created my own second brain system, life operating system called the PolyInnovation Operating System. The modular degree is a part of that. But this modular degree system is more of a framework of how you just approach modular education. Like you said, your system doesn't really work in the traditional degree, 3-year, 4-year kind of way. And I think this modular approach would allow you to atomize what you're talking about so people could pick the different skill tree pathways for it. More importantly than that, too, I think that one of the things I wanted to do is create my own business modular degrees that people can go and buy or get for free, whatever, and then have other people like yourself with their expertise make their own modular degree people can then take.
Yeah, I definitely check these out. It's just, I think that is one bit of aspiration, because I have received a lot of help and I want to give as much help as I've been given and more. I think this is the way we grow, but I do find, the limitations of, again, pretending to be extremely happy with the environment we are. Just that doesn't cut the mustard anymore.
Yeah, it's interesting phrase. Well, once again, this is Dustin, PolyInnovator, and Dimitri Lazarou on the Round 2 PolyCast. Thank you for coming back on.
Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Innovators crave innovative products, which is exactly why the Polymath PolyCast is powered by Riverside.fm. With Riverside, you can achieve studio quality without the need for an actual studio. You'll get uncompressed audio and up to 4K video from the comfort of your own home. All recordings are done locally, which means that you and your guests will get the highest quality possible, even with unreliable internet. Hi, I'm Kendall from Riverside, and do yourself a favor and upgrade from cloud-based softwares like Skype, Zoom, or Hangouts. Try out Riverside today and use the link in the show notes, because your groundbreaking content deserves to look and sound its very best.